Welcome to Conversations with Toy, a blogcast tackling life one episode at a time. This is the time to air out life's craziest moments. This space is all about speaking about life's hang-ups and ways in which we can leave better than when we started. Topics are all about ways we can find space to be better in life, love, mental space, and health.
Happy Friday. I hope that you have had the most amazing week. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Toy. We are back. It was an unexpected time off. I was supposed to obviously record last week, but last week was the Labor Day weekend and I needed a break, which doesn't happen, especially since we just started this episode, or this season, I should say. So it was very out of character, but definitely necessary. So with that being said, thank you for tuning into Conversations with Toy. I am Toy, the podcaster. I am also a content creator, freelance writer, blogger. I have a lot of titles. I'm also a wife and the mother of 3 beautiful children. And this is Conversations with Toy. We will talk, or I should say I will talk about different conversations, different topics, including mental health and wellness, which will always be featured on this podcast. If you have some sort of mental health, and how do you know that you have mental health? When you are triggered by something, when you find yourself going left, when your spirit is going left, you are in the midst of life is lifing, and you find that you are deep into this life work and you discover that you aren't doing as well as you thought that you could have handled things a little different, which means that includes all of us. We all have some level of mental health. I cannot stand for those who just want to act like life don't touch them. They act like nothing ever happens. They act like they have their lives all together. Where? How? Again, where? And again, how? Because for the rest of us, we know all too well that life is lifing, and we know what that looks like. And that is the purpose of being here. None of us have it all together. We are struggling. We are trying to do what we need to do. We're doing the best that we can possibly do for our lives, making the best possible decisions for ourselves. And some days we get it right. We're right on point. We do all the things. We say all the right things. And then there are the days where I don't like to dwell in, but I find myself there where it don't always work out. We could be doing things differently. We could be doing things in a better light, but we don't. So if that is you, welcome, because this podcast is for you. It was made for you, gifted by me, because I lived and am living life where sometimes things don't always pan out the way that we choose. Before we get too deep into this podcast, I do want to give a heartfelt prayer, sympathy, love, understanding, peace, and everything positive to the 4 victims who lost their lives in the Apalachee High School. And I'm sure I'm not saying that correctly, but Richard Aspinwall, Mason Sherman Warhorn, Kristen Angelo, and Christina Ermy lost their lives. 2 teachers and 2 students, 14 years old. Both the students are 14, and then the 2 teachers. As a parent, first of all, as a human being, regardless of me being a parent, as a human being, it's getting so disheartening to have to keep making these prayer and supplication posts, to have to keep saying rest in peace to souls, to keep saying, God cover. It is just literally getting disheartening. And then when you add the fact that I am a parent of a high schooler, ever since the first set of school shootings happened, and for me, I'm going to say this is closely to when I started having children. I'm not saying that school shootings just happened, because of course you can do research and know that that's not the case. But as a parent of an actual high schooler, my oldest started 10th grade this week. Every time I've sent her to school, including my elementary kids, because it's not like it's just shootings for high school versus elementary. It's just unfortunate it's happening all over the place for no reason. my heart personally broke because I thought about how, as always, when you drop your children off, we pray with our kids, like outwardly, like out loud, very out loud with prayer. It's not something we do just in our spirit. We don't just pray in our heads. We legitimately pray out loud with our kids before we drop them off at school. And I am always, as well as my husband is always, making sure that when we let them know, like, sometimes you have to be aware that anything could happen to any one of us. So regardless of the morning wake ups when it's, people are tense and you're trying to get the kids out the door and out of school, know this: we're not guaranteed our next breath. We learned that with Fat Man Scoop, who performed literally last week and lost his life in the midst of his performance, took his last breath. Okay? We are not guaranteed that life. And so I say that to say that I've been trying to tell my kids more now than ever about the fact that when we send them out to school, there's no guarantee that they're going to come back home. When we as parents go off to work, there's no guarantee that we're going to come back home. To think that those set of parents sent their children to school thinking that it was just going to be a normal school day and their children didn't make it. To think that those teachers went out to educate their students that day and didn't make it back home. When these senseless acts of violence happen with guns and all kinds of things, it legitimately continues to prove the point. I am a military brat, meaning my father has served over 20 something years and at various times in active duty. And he's been in several wars and been at Afghanistan twice. Every time I have a girl, he went to Afghanistan. I got 2 girls. And even as a military brat, I still don't see a reason for a civilian to have access to high-powered guns. I don't see it. I'm 100% on, right to bear arms. 100%. I think, if you are in your right mind, not having any domestic violence, abuse, and you're doing all those things, you need to be able to protect your family, but you don't need a high artillery gun to do so. And so the fact that we allow this to continue to happen in the United States when there's other countries that don't even have nothing closely remote to this, and they are considered third world countries or even, right above, United States, at the end of the day, why are we still having these issues? Why are we keep saying RIP to so many souls because of gun violence is legitimately not even making sense. So I just want to send my heartfelt love to those families who lost their lives and to the 30 or so children and adults, whomever was in the school that was injured, because their lives are forever impacted. Forever impacted. So I want to send out condolences to those who lost their lives and to those, send out love to those who are in the midst of recovery. And even if you went to that school or someone who went to that school, just knowing somebody who's had that happen, it's heartbreaking. So just want to start off the show by saying that. Let us get into this week's conversations. First and foremost, I don't mean to be that person, but every last one of us probably had a crazy week. But I promise you, when I tell you that my mental health was being pushed to the upper room, to the limits, I guarantee you, I have been pushed to my limits this week. To my limits. Let me say that again. To my limits. This week has tried me in a way that has not been tried before. And I always say every time we come to it, like, oh, the week is so long. And this was allegedly a short week with the Labor Day holiday being this past Monday. Most of us was off. But I promise you, I just want to say I promise you, this week kicked my behind. There was one day in particular where everything that could go wrong went wrong, and I kept saying, I'm going to stay in control. I'm going to remain in control. I was very verbal, letting people know where I was mentally, emotionally, where my boundaries were that day, and yet everybody was literally moonwalking on my nerve. And at this point, they was like recycling the nerves, and still I was feeling tried. This week has kicked my behind to the utmost. I have not experienced a week like this in a long time. So my personal goals for this week was obviously to say, "Yay, we are here. We made it. Praise be." Because that sometimes it just, I know we're not supposed to celebrate till Friday and wait for certain days and to the weekend, all that. But sometimes it gets down to the nitty gritty where sometimes just getting to a Friday is a blessing within itself. And I promise you, the struggle was hugely real, hugely real. So this week kicked my behind in ways that I could not imagine. But thank God for therapy. The one day I had therapy, needed it. Needed it. I was going through it all day, went into therapy, praise God, came out of therapy, felt a little bit better, and went right back into the fight. And I promise you, I didn't think I was going to survive. And it's not one of those moments when you're like, oh, I'm just so tired. I'm so tired. No, it wasn't about being tired. I'm telling you, I was full awake. I was full of life. I was full of all the things. And yet and still, Thursday, and this just yesterday, Thursday, no, Wednesday, kicked me to no end. It was Wednesday. And I said to myself, my God, what is going on? What is going on? So if you've ever experienced that, or you experienced that this week where you thought to yourself, my God, what is going on? You are not alone by any means. But we got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about a lot of things that I believe were happening in these internet streets and how we can learn from those from conversations around it, things that I watched, things that I've observed. And I hope that when you're listening to this podcast or any other podcast, that they are of some benefit and of some help. Because again, at the end of the day, it's all about growing. And sometimes when you hear somebody else say something that you've been through or you experience, it literally makes you feel seen and heard. And that's honestly what I honestly hope for every last person that's listening. Again, there are going to be times when I'm going to be funny. Okay, cool. And then there's going to be times when I got to be serious. And then there's just going to be times when things are just informative. And so again, as we take this ride, let's pray that again we get to the point where all things make more sense. Because again, when you're not seen, you're not heard, when you feel like you're by yourself, nobody wants that. Like nobody wants to feel that way. One of the things that I'm really disturbed about this whole shooting was to hear that the father of the shooter's name is Colt Gray, and his father gifted his son an AR-15. I'm sorry. So when I was young, I thought when I was 17, so he was 15. When I was 17, I bought my first pair of boots. Now let me say this. It wasn't knee boots at the time because I wasn't like a knee boot person. I didn't even know anything about knee boots. I'm 17. My parents had me very sheltered in the church. At no point did my parents decide, oh, you know what? We're going to go ahead and gift her a AR-15. Because like, what are we doing here? Because what exactly are we going through? Because why would we gift a child an AR-15? Thank the Lord, okay? Thank the Lord that, actually no, Colt Gray is the father of the 14-year-old. The 14-year-old is the one who shot, unfortunately, a mass shooting at the high school, and Colt Gray is the father. Sir, why would you gift your child an AR-15? I can't barely trust my child with a cell phone, and you're out here gifting a child an actual high-powered gun. Please make it make sense, because right now I am lost for words as to why we thought that was a good idea. Thankfully, he's being charged as well as he should, because, again, I say, why are we doing this? This makes legitimately no actual sense whatsoever. Now, preface what I'm about to say. The conversation that I have been seeing going around about Tamar Braxton, the reason why I'm bringing her up, because we do talk about things that happen on these internet streets. I, for one, cannot understand for the life of me why this child's life needs to be digested this bad, except for the fact that we're just bored as people. We just got to be bored as people. I get it. Tamar Braxton is a celebrity in her own right. She is the sister of Toni Braxton. She's made her own record. She has done all these different things. So she chose to put herself on reality TV, which I really don't understand. Listen, I get it. Everybody has their price. And God forbid you get in a situation where you feel like you need to sell your story, sell your life for a check. It's just, in my opinion, it just cannot be worth it. I've never been tempted to even do it because, again, nobody's knocking down my door talking about, let's talk about your life. So before y'all come for me and say, well, nobody cares about your life. First of all, don't say that because people care about my life. Don't say that people don't care about anybody's life because that's not how it works. That's number one. Number two, I get it. Selling your story sells. It makes money. It does all the things. But for her to keep going back and forth with this maybe husband, he's not my boyfriend, he's my husband, Jeremy Robinson, I don't get it. I honestly don't know if her mental health is at the best place. She lost her sister, I would assume like less than a year ago, because now everybody's, talking about it because it's being shown on the Braxton Sisters show or the Braxton show, Braxton Family Values. And I just don't know. From an outsider, again, this is my personal thought process. This is not something that you need to quote me on. This is not something that I can be like, this is Bible, this is what's happening. No. But to have all these things that you lose in your life and then go to the situation where, again, now you're trying to win, you're trying to do better, and you're trying to figure out your life. And now you have this man who could be your husband, not your husband. I don't know, but I'm sick and tired of hearing about Tamar. And the reason why I say that is because it's just team too much. Every time you turn around, this Tamar is in the news. She's in the conversation. She's on the internet. And they are doing whole think pieces. And this is why I'm not doing a whole think piece. Only thing I can say is I can't tell you where her mindset is, but I do know as a woman, if you put your love behind somebody, again, she's already had one marriage. So now she's into a possible second, because I have not seen confirmation of this marriage. But if Tamar says she was married, she was married. Who am I to sit there and tell her she wasn't? Here's the problem. So much of our mental health gets tied into our relationships, gets tied into our partner. I, for one, know 100% how that feels, what that looks like. And I can also tell you that even though I'm not defending any of Tamar's behaviors because I don't know that woman enough to make any statements, all I will say is that somebody who has had to fight their mental health while in a relationship, it can be the loneliest, strongest, and craziest of battles. I'm not shocked and surprised with all the back and forth. I'm not shocked about or surprised about coming on the internet and telling everybody your business and then retreating, saying, no, mind your business, we're good. To only come back 20 minutes later, seems like in internet years, that's what it feels like, to come back and forth and back and forth, because your mental health can't be that great. Even if she wanted in good intentions to make this marriage work, whatever that may be, it's not working. And so it's a lot of drama going back and forth. And I, for one, just want this child to get it right. Get it right. Not get it perfect. We don't believe in perfection, but to get it right. Now, before we get too deep, today is Friday, obviously, and it is Bring Your Manners to Work Day, Fight Procrastination Day, National 401k Day. If you don't have a 401k, you need to do better. National Coffee Ice Cream Day, National Food Bank Day, National Lazy Moms Day, and National Read a Book Day. So you could tie two of those things together. If you're a mom, you can read a book and sit down and let these kids and these adults and these husbands and these boyfriends and these baby daddies and all these other people that's supposed to be helping you, let them handle it and be lazy and read a book. That's how I get down. You choose what's best for you, but it is all of those things on this beautiful Friday. I really do hope that you're in the best place. Let's continue on with this conversation and let's get into the fly on the wall moment. What's on today's To Be a Fly on the Wall segment? Tell me what is wrong with people in this quote unquote Chase Bank glitch, which we know is basically fraud. I would love to be the fly on the wall to understand what would make you, one, commit such a crime, and then two, after committing such a crime, make videos of you committing such a crime and talking about how you got away with it and how you got all this money. Listen, I know people who actually work for Chase, and they're literally saying how real this is and how many people literally went off of this video that they saw online. This is why we got to understand. I don't understand people, and maybe it's not meant for me to understand, but why are we like this? Making videos about stuff that we know good and damn well is basically committing a crime. I'm not about to have somebody have whole videos of it, of me being at the ATM trying to withdraw the money and showing the money that I got. Like, this is called evidence that can be and will be used against you in a court of law. I don't, it just, it's above me now. Like, I don't understand what's happening here. And this week has been a week where people have decided that they're going to just go out here, commit this crime, call it a glitch, which is basically calling it fraud, get caught, make videos about it, and you didn't think nothing was going to happen. What did you think? Everything is traceable, everything is trackable at this point. And so, yes, my thoughts are, what was you thinking? Because what were you actually thinking? We all can go online on any of these social media sites and see faces of people who did this. What you gonna say? It wasn't you? Like Shaggy's song ain't gonna be able to carry you, right? Because even Shaggy's song was about a man who basically didn't want to take accountability, but we knew it was him. Like, it was you stealing money from a bank, and for why? You had no reason to. So I would love to be the fly on the wall of the police officer that have to go do their due diligence to pick you up after you were online doing such dances, so celebratory and so excited about stealing money from a bank that you know didn't belong to you. Because again, you're going to go to jail. And I am just flabbergasted at the fact that we make videos after said crimes with evidence of that crime being in the video. I am confused. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you must be a fly on the wall. You got to join me so we can all see what's going on. But however, it has been called the Chase Bank glitch, where people have then somehow got a hold of a check, deposit this check into their ATM. Chase allows you to have so much of that deposit, and while they remove that deposit or that amount from the deposit that they make, then they're spending it and showing off and everything else. But once the check doesn't clear, because it's not, some people have been left with thousands upon thousands of dollars that they did not have access to, and it's committing fraud, defaming, defrauding. And it is not a walk in the park. It's really not. And I don't know what's wrong with us that we have to put everything on the internet. But that's another story for another day. It is yet a crime. I'm not really sure why we don't know that, but it is a crime. And so I wish all those who are caught up, as Usher would say, in their foolishness. Speaking of Usher, TikTok has let me know that Philadelphia is a place that you don't want to see a concert because allegedly, and I say allegedly because I wasn't in the building, I can't tell you if the show was good or not, but saying that Philadelphia is not a great show to see the Usher performance, or was not a great show to see the Usher performance because it was so dry, so boring, so all these different things. I have no idea. Because again, I just want to preface, I was not there. The last time I saw Usher, I did see him at the Roots Picnic and he was fine. Before that, I saw him on one of his tour dates for the Las Vegas residency. And that residency was everything, worth every coin, even though I wasn't the one that paid the coin. It was worth it. It was legitimately worth a good time. So I don't know, but according allegedly, Usher is not a good time in Philadelphia. Just not. This week on podcasts, I listened to Club Shay Shay. I don't really watch the YouTube. I'm not really interested in seeing it unfold personally, but I'm okay with watching or listening to it. And I was listening to the Marlon Wayans conversation about how much he gave his father and his mother their flowers, stating how, his father was a real man. He raised them to be men, to take care of their families, to do the right thing. And it's amazing to me how, again, as we get older, we don't understand that if your children can rise up and call you blessed, that's the flex. The Kenan Wayans, Ivory Wayans, and the Wayans family don't get the credit that they absolutely deserve for what they've done to put comedy in its rightful place. And my thought process with everybody doing the cancel culture, with everybody doing, the conversations of, we're cutting off our toxic family, which 100% I agree with, no matter who they are. But in this age and time where that's such a prevalent conversation, I was really refreshed to hear the Wayans, to hear Marlon speak very highly of his brother, Kenan Ivory Wayans, who started pretty much the Wayans family way outside of the father, of course. And to hear of him talk about how, when he wants to get closer to his father who passed, and his mother did pass as well, that he reads the Bible. To hear him talk about his family and talk about his dad, talk about his mom, about how he was like one of the few rare people in his community that actually had access to the father that lived in the home, and how his father looked out for them and made sure that they were okay and made sure that they were good. In this age, that's such a rarity, because we hear so many about things about parents and how awful they are and how they don't want to let you live your life. And when you come from good stock, and your children can speak highly of that good stock, because it's one thing to have your parents still alive and you make comments like to like kind of guard them and you're just kind of protective of them. But when they're not here and you have no one else to impress, when you don't have to make such statements and you choose to do it, it just is reminiscent of the good work that they've been putting in. So Marlon Wayans in that Club Shay Shay interview was actually beautiful and beautifully done. Yes, I know we have the Cat Williams of the years. Yes, we have all these other artists that have come through and different aspects of their lives, but to hear that really, really did touch me, because again, we live in a cancel culture society. We live in if they're toxic, we're cutting them off. We don't care about their titles. So it was good to see and hear that there are family members, there are people that you can look up to, and you can give people their flowers, and you should give people their flowers while they're still here, because sometimes we get caught up in life, we get caught up in the drama, we get caught up in the different things that take place, and we don't always put into consideration and take account for the fact that, again, when life is happening around us, we sometimes take for granted those very moments. For today's topic of the podcast, I want to say blogcast, because that is what we talk about. That is the title. This is a blogcast. If you listen to the opening credits, if you would like to call it, it's a blogcast. So on today's blogcast, I do want to talk about I'll just talk about my personal experience, because like I tell everybody, I am not a licensed anything, but what I will talk about is my personal experience. And in my personal experience, I've had a history of when someone has hurt me, right? And that means mentally, emotionally, and even sometimes physically. And what I mean by that is just from the past, things that you've gone through. And when someone has hurt you, it's like you still look for them to be a source of help. You want them to kind of fix what they've caused. Like, it's a weird feeling to want someone to give you joy that also gave you hell. And if you've ever been through something like that, if you've ever been trapped in that cycle, you know how unstable that is. You know that doesn't make any logical sense. You know all of the things, but it doesn't stop you from feeling that. I've had times when people have hurt me, have done things to me, and I find like I gravitate them even more. It's like waiting for them to ring a bell, and all of a sudden things are going to be different, because you truly desire, overall, you desire for them to not be the way that they are. You desire for them to not cause the pain. You want joy from them. You want to feel successful around them. You want to feel healthy around them. You want to feel like they're, have your best interests in mind. But in reality, you know the truth. And that has been some of the conversations that I have been covering in therapy. Now, again, I am telling you that this is the stuff that I'm covering in therapy. What you go to therapy for may not be one and the same. You could have all kinds of reasons. And let me just say this before I continue with this conversation. There are 1,000,001 reasons to go to therapy. It doesn't always have to be from something dramatically happening and then bam, you need to be in therapy. It could be going back to clarify some things. It could be going for self-confidence. Maybe you don't feel as confident and you need help with that. There are 1,000,001 ways to go to therapy. There's reasons to go, and you should consider whatever your reasons are. But back to the conversation about how we should handle, what we should be doing, how I handle when I discover that myself, where I want to be around the same person who has caused me issues. I feel like this has to do with my childhood too, because even when I was a young child, now I've had my mother on the podcast before. We talked about, some of the things that she struggled with when she was, in her stages of being a parent. Now she's my parent, but she's not necessarily raising us. And as a child, you feel that desire to want to be entreated. You want to be around people. You want to hope that they love you and feel all the security. And as you grow up from a child, if you dealt with that as a child and you grow up to an adult, that doesn't always change. You literally go from one hand to another. This is exactly the reason why I believe personally that all people should benefit and could benefit from at least trying therapy, because as you go through different phases of your life and you're not really taking care of yourself and you're just going on and on and on, you will find that trauma is going to be something that you're going to necessarily deal with constantly in your life. It's not like you just turn it on and off. It's not a light switch. And so as a child, I found that the people who irritated me the most, the people who hurt me the most, the people who said the worst things, I found myself gravitating towards them, because it's like, if I do enough physical things, if I give them enough of my energy, if I give them enough of my time, it will change the way and the perception of what they feel about me. It'll change how they treat me. It'll make them say sorry. It'll make them do all these different things. Now let's fast forward to adulthood. In adulthood, which is the real hood, good and darn well that that's not how it works. You can be with somebody, be around somebody, and be in the presence of someone who has constantly done you some wrong, who has hurt you, who has done all these different things. But when you consistently put yourself in a position to continue for it to happen, it's literally not necessarily not, on you all the way. Like they do bear some responsibility, but I am responsible for my actions. And so in therapy, I've been trying to reroute that desire to continuously want to be up underneath the person who does the pain, who causes the issue, who says a disrespectful thing, but you continue to run back. Those are things that I have struggled with in the past. And it's not a good feeling, because again, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, no matter what you put into the atmosphere, if that person or persons is dedicated to your pain, if that person or persons are dedicated to seeing you struggle, they're not going to stop. And I was listening to something earlier this week, and it was talking about how sometimes we do the most for people that will never tell us sorry, hoping that they will. And I had to come to the realization, this was the therapist before now. Let me just preface, I have not been in therapy like consistently for like 20 years. That's not what's happened. What I will say is that with my son being almost 13, I would say in 13 years, when I've experienced some level of like alertness to my trauma, meaning I've experienced the trauma already before, but when something is pulling on me, I'm feeling triggered, I'm in a season of something, like I'm in a season right now where my relationships are being tested, in my opinion. And the more that I pray for like, oh God, oh Heavenly Father, would you just please open the door and show me? The more I keep asking God to show me, He's showing me, and I don't really like what's being seen. We always say, oh Lord, if you just show me, I will just walk through. If you give me the answer, I need a sign from the Lord. And the Lord is like, how many signs you need? Like, I don't understand. You asked me to show you, I showed you, and you're making excuses. I'm in that season right now. And again, I have to say, learning to stop going up underneath the people that hurt you. Stop going around them. Stop feeling like you can work your way back into their good graces. If I do the right thing, if I say the right thing, they're going to change. I'm just from my personal experience. And you could say, well, maybe you're just jaded. I don't think it's a part of being jaded. I think it's a part of life and making the realization of what you're really dealing with. Because the more and more you lie to yourself and tell yourself that it's not going to be a certain way, like it just doesn't work out. It's just not a good look, like at all. And so I've asked my therapist of like, what other ways can I find to make sure that I'm not keep surrounding around myself around that same cycle. And my therapist was telling me, be assertive, speak up. Don't let things go, be said and you're not saying anything, because what happens is, specifically for me, is that when things are not being said, I'm still harboring things, thinking that things have gotten over. And then when something triggers that looks exactly like, it may not necessarily be the same issue, but when it mirrors the same type of issue, I'm back in the same place that I claimed that I was healed from, and I'm not. And I'm sure not the only one, right? And even if I was, I'm doing all the things I can do to get the help that I need. But being around somebody who consistently is a problem, who consistently treats you any type of way. Here's the thing about people. Oftentimes when people when they start treating you indifferently, they're not going to come right out and do it. It's very subtle. It's just very subtle, and you're not aware. Your spirit is not aware. You're kind of giving passes. You kind of let your guard down. You don't recognize it, but it doesn't change. And so I have been forcefully, and by forcefully meaning of my own will, but yet forcefully trying to make sure that I reconcile this kid need to continuously be around people who consistently hurt. Now, as I've gotten older, I've learned what I consider to be toxic for me, because again, everybody's toxicity level is not the same. And so what does toxic mean to me? What does it look like to me? How can I still live in a space and still be around a toxic person? How much of this do I need to push off? How much of it do I need to speak up? How much of this do I have to like kind of not let things go and be more, forward? Like, these are very real things. And as much as we talk about different things that's happening on these internet streets, as much as we talk about those things, the other flip to that is that life happens to every last one of us. And so my process now in therapy is that my relationships that I ask God, show me a sign, are being tested. They're being tested. It's just inevitable. It's just a test. It's happening. We've got to find better ways to process. I have been asking myself, like, it's okay for me to withdraw. It's okay for me to say I'm not ready for that conversation. It's okay for me to say I don't really feel the energy to give this to this conversation. You have got to rechannel that energy, because if you continuously tell yourself that there's nothing wrong, you continue to tell yourself that, oh, okay, this was just a fluke, it's probably not. Something is probably triggering you. You're feeling a type of way, and you're feeling a type of way for a reason. For a reason. Oftentimes it protects you from what could be possible. Sometimes it could be to your detriment in health. It can actually be to your detriment and your health. So how are you going to process being around people that consistently bother you, being around people who consistently trigger you, being around people who make your mental health skip jumps and do backflips? For me, I'm putting it all on the table and saying, hey, we need to work on A, B, C, D, E, and F so that we can move forward. Because if we can't do that, we probably need to figure out how we can part ways. And that's not always easy to do. And that's on every level. It doesn't have to be a marriage or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, somebody you're dating. It could be a friend. I've had that happen too, where you're around a friend, they don't mean you any well. You still continue to go around them. And again, nobody wins when things like this happens. So ask yourself, are you around toxic so much that when toxic things happen, you find yourself running towards it instead of running the opposite way? Because some of us, and I say us because I know I've struggled in the past with wanting other people to see me in the midst of a trauma, like right in the midst of it. Like, I need somebody to help. I need somebody to see. But the reality of it is that the seeing, the hearing, the feeling, the moving, all those things have to come from me and me only. That's just kind of how life works. As we conclude today's episode, again, if you find yourself running towards the people who have hurt you, ask yourself why. Is it comfortability because you're not willing to take a chance on yourself? Is it because you don't feel like you are worthy of anything else? Is it because you feel like, again, if you're around it, then it's the devil because there's a lot of people who do that. They know that certain people are right for them, but because they're so used to that person, they're a group of people, they're going to continue being around that. You have to ask yourself that question. There's nothing that I can do to answer that. All I can do is tell you that in the midst of answering that question, ask what will you do with that information? If you find out that it's the people that you continuously run around, you don't have to be around them, but you make the choice to be around them. What will you do now to move forward? How can you move forward to make sure that your mental health and everything else that's around you is at the best place? Because that's what it boils down to. You've got to get to the right place where you can truly, truly find good things that are happening consistently across the board. You really do. I really do want that for you. Again, I suggested therapy. I think that's a great tool. If you've already been in therapy, there are tools that your therapist will give you that are conducive to you, that helps you, that work for you. They may not work for some other people. This is exactly why I'm not the type of person that's going to say you should go and do. I'm not going to tell you that. What I can say is that if you've experienced certain things that make you believe that the things that you have seen, the thing that you have heard, which is 100% true, which is the very definition of gaslighting, Okay, it's a variation of gaslighting. Make sure that you get professional help to assist you in that next wave, in that next move, because you're going to need that to go forward. This particular weekend, I want to talk about the fact that I am going to be taking a trip, seeing some of my friends, meeting up with them as we go to the Kirk Franklin concert. Let me just say this: the Kirk Franklin concert is going to be amazing. I was just at his previous one and it was so good. So I anticipate that this is going to be even better. Another thing that I anticipate in is that the concept of us making sure that, again, we are lights into this world. And I want us to try to do better with that. Now, going back to the Kirk Franklin concert, the reunion tour, who am I most eager to see? And I'm going to say that's going to be Fred Hammond. It's going to be Fred Hammond. Now, I am a PK, a preacher's kid. My mother is a choir director. She directed choirs in Virginia that I remember growing up and watching her. I also remember her singing in choirs her whole life. And then once we moved to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is the hometown where I'm from, you know, as a choir director, she's always going to listen to music, different types of music, different type of artists. But one that always have stuck out with me is Fred Hammond. Now, let me just share with you that music is healing and music is life. And for me, I actually have a very specific playlist that I play when things get really, 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 really rough. And I've had to tap into this week. I am eagerly excited to see Kirk Franklin. Yes, Kirk Franklin is great. But I'm so grateful to see Fred Hammond. This week he played He played a clip of a song, and that song literally moved me. For copyright purposes, I'm going to play a quick snippet for the fact of just making sure that people hear the song, and that is it. The name of the song is called Running Back to You. Another song that I will play is Prodigal Son. Please Don't Pass Me By. And this week I have been listening to Mender of Broken Hearts. Now, if you are a Fred Hammond fan, these songs are very familiar to you. The song that I played, Running Back to You, is very familiar. I remember even as a youth in the youth choir listening to that song, and it will bring you back. It means that no matter what you've gone through, no matter what you have done, you know, you have the ability to run back to God. Now, I know everybody does not listen to gospel music, and not everybody is in the church. Not everybody is all those different things, but I implore you to listen to that song. For me, that song feels like rejuvenation. That song feels like redemption. That song feels like, regardless of the very bottom, feeling like it's dropped out of your life, it feels like you can pick up the pieces, cry a little bit, and continue to move forward. So I say that to say that music is healing, and there are certain playlists that I have, that I actually do have, that I go to when things are just rough. And this week has been one of those weeks where I've had to go to certain songs. And when he played that snippet, which is a rehearsal of Fred Hammond preparing for the concert that I'm already going to be seeing this weekend, it reminded me of my young days, of my youth. It reminded me of being a teenager. I remember very explicitly crying in my living room as a 12-year-old daughter, a child, I should say, and listening to certain songs that evoked certain emotions that made me feel safe, that made me feel heard, that made me feel like as if when everybody around me is just absolutely not caring about what is going on with me, when I feel like I'm completely alone in a crowded room, songs like that can bring and feel like it fills the room up with love. It fills the room up with healing. It fills the room up with ministry. It fills the room up with joy, and it gives me the strength to move on from one day to another. And when I tell you that those songs have been tugging on me, not just in preparation for the concert, because honestly, even if the concert didn't happen, it just happens to work out for me in that way. There are just certain songs. Music can be healing. And with this week that I've had, with the roughness of everything that has taken place, with the challenges that I feel like I'm personally facing with my relationships in different areas being tested, those songs will always remain gold. They will always be my go-to. They will always be the soundtrack of my life. And I pray for anybody that's listening to this particular episode. If you feel like everything has gone to hell in a handbasket, trust and believe that God is going to make a way. He is going to make a way. I believe that. I received that, and I hope that you do the same. Thank you for listening to Conversations with Toy this week. I know this week has been kind of rough, so I hope that my energy, although it is a little low, I hope that my energy still is something that you can listen to that will give you some type of encouragement, because it's not my intention, my goal to make you feel lower than what you already feel or to high five your lowness. It is to make sure that you understand that in mental health and wellness, when it comes to our mindset, when it comes to the things that we face in life, there's no days where they're always the same. Sometimes you do have those low moments, and in the midst of those low moments, I promise you that it will turn. It may take a little time. It may be some work on your end that you have to do. It may be some getting rid of some people and some situations that you're putting yourself into. But whatever it is, I know for a fact that you will come out on top. Please make sure that you do one activity that will literally fill your cup. We will be back next week with another episode. Thank you for rocking out with Conversations with Toy. I send all kinds of love to you, like all kinds of joy and love your way, because we all could use that right now. Have the most amazing week. Pour into your cup, and I will see you next week. Thank you for listening to Conversations with Toy.
Thank you as always for joining me, and I know that even in the deepest or joyful conversations that there's something we can learn and apply. Until next time, I hope that you are doing better. If not, we will be back to talk some more and handle it. Peace to you and yours. Stay grounded.